Today we're gonna look at how attractive is Dasha Taran really. So first, her front actually got a 7.69 out of 10, which is roughly a top 0.3% harmony score. And her side is a 6.63 out of 10, and we can see that that's roughly top 8%. So overall, she got a 7.22 out of 10, which is roughly a 2% to harmony face. So this is just a harmony, and she obviously has an excellent harmony, and it's 1 in 57 people roughly, but her overall score is higher than that. Because this only accounts for harmony, and when we include things like angularity, dimorphism, which is how feminine or masculine your face is, or your misc features, if we include all that, we can see that she's around an 8, which is the best looking out of roughly 10K people. But anyways, we can go through her front ratios. So her two only really biggest flaws on her face in terms of harmony is her lips lateral alar angle and her jaw frontal angle. And this was a pretty big deductor actually. So we can see that she has her mid face and her jaw alignment doesn't really match the ideal here, which is 0 to 2.5, and hers is like pretty outside the ideal. So this kind of shows that her mid face is disharmonious and relative to her jaw frontal angle. And her second biggest flaw was her lower third proportion. So we can see that her philtrum is too short compared to her chin. Her chin is a little too long vertically, and that kind of messes up the proportions of her lower third. And she scored pretty well on her FWHR, but obviously it's not ideal because of her long mid face. Again, she has medium set cheekbones. It can be a little higher. And we can look at her mouth to nose ratio. It's at 1.45, which is pretty good, but it's obviously not in the ideal. We would want her nose to be slightly slimmer. And we can look at her bigonial width. This is really important. It basically shows how wide your jaw is, and we can see that hers is pretty wide. We don't want it over 88.50% or it'll look too masculine, because obviously wider jaws are more masculine. These are her facial thirds, so we can see that her forehead is 32% of her total face shape, and her mid face is 34.8%, and her lower third is 32.2%. So we can see that her mid face is the biggest. Even though it's perfect in terms of the score of her facial thirds, we would ideally want the mid face slightly shorter. This is her eye separation ratio, so her ESR, how far or close set her eyes are, and this is perfect. Mid face ratio is perfect. Her canthal tilt is roughly 6 degrees here and 8.5 degrees here, which is perfect. I don't think her canthal tilt is that asymmetrical. I might have done the mappings wrong, but it's still ideal, whether I did it slightly wrong. Oh, this is pretty important. So she has pretty low set eyebrows. This is, I'll say, medium low, but it's still ideal for Caucasian women. So this is pretty important too. It measures how big the eyes are, and hers is perfect, well in the ideal. Her neck width is 78%. We don't want it too high or it'll be too masculine. And ear protrusion, we can't really see, but when you look at other pictures of Dasha Taran, we can actually see that her ears aren't too protruded. And we can go to the side now. This is not the best picture of Dasha Taran's side because it's kind of angled, right? But we can still kind of see her measurements and stuff. Then this was the best picture I could find of her. So this was a big flaw from her. She actually got a 0 out of 10. This basically shows how round or sharp your nasal tip is. So this is saying how Dasha Taran's nose tip is actually too round. This is her brow ridge inclination. This is pretty important too. Hers is too sloped. We would want it more straight vertically. This is important too. This was a big deductor of her facial convexity. This basically shows how projected your face is, and we can see that her lower third, right there, is a bit recessed. We would want it a bit more forward, like the lips a little bit and like the chin. And these are the lip assessments to see whether you're recessed or not. And we can see that her lips are about 2 millimeters recessed. And this is another convexity score, which is pretty important. Again, she's like bit recessed, so that's why she's losing points on this. Also, by the way, if you want to score like Dasha Taran here on your facial harmony, you can actually press my link below in the pinned comments to get your score like this for free. You can get your side measurements, your 29 ratios, for free. And we can see the gonio angle here is pretty good, but it's slightly obtuse. We would want it like slightly more up here. This was good. Her nasal frontal angle is pretty good. Nasal projection is good. This kind of just shows that it's like very slightly over projected, but it's fine. It doesn't really matter. This shows how projected your nose is. She passes these lip assessments. This is important. It shows whether you have a rounded neck or not, so we can see that she's pretty lean. This is pretty important too. Orbital vector. If you have a negative orbital vector, that'll look more like you have eye bags and you look tired and unhealthy. But hers is pretty good, so she looks healthy if we look around the eye region. And now we can look at her top strength. So we can see that her ramus is long, pretty long. And we can see that her upper lip is pretty full relative to her lower lip. And she has pretty balanced facial thirds. It's neither too long or too short. And she has an ideal forehead width. It's not too big or too small. And for her worst flaws, we can look at her mandibular recession. Again, when we looked at the facial convexity, we saw that it was a little recessed. We would want her lower jaw to be more forward. And that contributes to underprojected chin. We would want Dasha Taran's chin to be bit more forward. Thanks for watching. So thanks for watching, guys. If you guys want a facial analysis like Dasha Taran here, you guys can press down my link below to get your full facial harmony analysis, just like we did for Dasha Taran here. And for free, you guys can get your side profile rating for free, and you guys can get couple measurements and couple key strings for free. So there's no reason why you don't want this if you're interested in facial aesthetics.